Imagine you are standing on a rain-slicked curb in a city you have never visited. It is late, the streetlights are flickering, and you are waiting for a total stranger to pull up in a metal box and take you miles away. 20 years ago, if you told your parents you were doing this, they would have called the police. They would have told you it was a recipe for disaster. Never get into a car with a stranger. It was the golden rule of survival, and yet tonight you do it without a second thought. You look at a glowing screen, see a pixelated face and a 4.8-star rating, and you climb into the back seat. You have just performed a psychological magic trick. You have replaced a lifetime of survival instinct with a digital signal. This is the great paradox of our modern age. We are more suspicious than ever of the big machines, the governments, the banks, the ancient institutions that once held the world together. And yet, we are increasingly willing to trust a person we have never met, based on nothing more than a bit of data. We are living through a fundamental rewiring of the human experience, a shift so profound it is changing the very social glue that allows us to function as a species. To understand how we got here, we have to go back, way back, to the evolutionary engine that built our brains. For 99% of human history, trust was a matter of life and death. If you trusted the wrong person in a hunter-gatherer tribe, you didn't just lose money, you lost your life, or your food, or your offspring. Our ancestors evolved in small, tight-knit groups where everyone knew everyone else. In these tiny circles, trust was local and accountability-based. If you were a member of a tribe of 50 people, your reputation was your most valuable currency. If you stole a piece of meat or lied about where the water was, the news traveled instantly. You were shunned, and in the Pleistocene era, being shunned was a death sentence. This created a neurological hardwiring in our brains called the amygdala-driven fear response. We are biologically programmed to be hyper-vigilant around outsiders. A stranger was a threat until proven otherwise, a biological red alert that flooded our systems with cortisol. At a neurological level, trust is not a rational calculation, it is a chemical cocktail. When we interact with someone we perceive as trustworthy, our brain releases oxytocin, a neuropeptide often called the social bonding hormone. This chemical suppresses the fear response in the amygdala and allows the prefrontal cortex to engage in cooperation. But for thousands of years, this response was triggered only by proximity and familiarity. You trusted your cousin. You trusted the blacksmith who lived down the lane. You trusted the person whose eyes you could look into. This was the first chapter of trust, the local chapter. It was highly effective, but it did not scale. You couldn't build a global empire or a transcontinental railroad on local trust because you simply couldn't know enough people. Imagine you are a merchant in the year 1000. You want to trade silk across a continent. How do you trust a person 3,000 miles away? You can't. The gap is too wide. This leads us to the second great chapter, the era of institutional trust. Around the mid-19th century, the world exploded in size. People flooded into massive cities like London and San Francisco. The local banker, who knew your father and your grandfather, was replaced by a massive corporation with a stone facade and 1,000 employees. We stopped trusting individuals and started trusting black box systems of authority. We put our faith in legal contracts, in government regulations, and in insurance policies. We allowed a massive bureaucracy to act as the intermediary for our lives. This was a brilliant invention because it allowed us to trade with strangers on the other side of the planet. But it came with a cost. Trust became opaque, linear, and top-down. We trusted the brand, not the person. We trusted the badge, not the face. But look around you today. That institutional shield is cracking. We are witnessing a global collapse in the belief that big organizations have our best interests at heart. Whether it is a massive phone hacking scandal by a media conglomerate, a systematic cheating of emissions tests by a global car manufacturer, or the widespread failures of the church. The message is clear. The institutions have broken the contract. We saw it in the great financial crisis of 2008, when millions of people lost their homes while only one measly banker went to jail. We saw it again in the release of millions of leaked documents showing how the wealthiest people on Earth exploit offshore tax regimes while the rest of us play by the rules. We are fed up with the audacity of dishonest elites. And this is where the mystery deepens. Because as our trust in these massive pillars crumbles, we aren't becoming more cynical. We are simply moving our trust somewhere else. We are entering the age of distributed trust. Consider the mundane example of an online auction site. Imagine you are looking to buy a second-hand car, a navy blue sedan. You find one online, but the seller's username is something ridiculous, like Invisible Wizard. Your rational brain says, do not send thousands of dollars to an invisible wizard. That is insane. And yet you look at their history. You see 500 positive reviews from other people just like you. You see that they have successfully sold 400 items in the last 3 years. Suddenly, the stranger isn't a stranger anymore. They are a verified participant in a system. You take a trust leap. A trust leap happens when we take the risk to do something new or different from the way we have always done it. It is the force that pulls us over the gap between the known and the unknown. You give your credit card details to a website. You sleep in a spare bedroom of someone you have never met. You let a stranger drive you home. We are climbing what I call the trust stack. The trust stack has 3 levels. First, you have to trust the idea. You have to believe that the concept of sharing a ride or a home is safe and worth trying. Second, you have to trust the platform. You have to believe that if something goes wrong, the company behind the app will have your back. And third, you use little bits of information, social cues, digital footprints, to decide whether the specific person on the other side is trustworthy. The first time we climb this stack, it feels weird, even dangerous. But then a shift happens. The behavior becomes normal. It becomes invisible. We forget that we were ever afraid. Why now? Let's look at a high-stakes systemic example of this shift. Think about the global ride-sharing phenomenon. In cities all over the world, taxi associations have protested. They have screamed that these new apps are unsafe. They have begged governments to ban them. In London, a high-ranking government minister once tweeted that he had never even heard of the most popular ride-sharing app until the taxi drivers started protesting against it. But here is the fascinating thing. By protesting, the taxi associations actually legitimized the first layer of the trust stack. They told the world that the idea was powerful enough to be a threat. In 24 hours, signups for the app increased by 850%. You cannot reverse the story once a trust shift has happened. Today, 5 million people a day take a trust leap with that single company. In China, another platform facilitates 11 million rides every single day. That is 127 rides per second. This is a cross-cultural phenomenon that is bypassing a century of government-regulated medallions and professional licensing. We are trusting the crowd more than the commission. But why does it work so well? Why do we behave better in a stranger's car or home than we do in a traditional hotel? Imagine you are staying in a high-end international hotel. When you leave the room, do you always hang up your towels? Probably not. You might leave them in a wet heap on the floor because you are paying for a service and the institution is faceless. But when you stay in a stranger's home through a peer-to-peer platform, you are much more likely to tidy up. Why? Because you know you are being rated. You know that your reputation is on the line. In the 21st century, trust is being unbundled and inverted. It is no longer top-down, it is distributed among people. It is becoming accountability-based once again, just like it was in the ancient village, but on a global scale. This is the new social glue. However, we must look through a critical lens. This shift is not without its shadows. What happens when the trust stack is manipulated? What happens when the algorithms that govern our reputations are biased or broken? We have seen cases where distributed trust goes horribly wrong, where the system is gamed by bad actors, or where the platform fails to protect the vulnerable. There is a danger that we are creating a digital panopticon, a world where every single interaction is monitored and scored. If you have a bad day and you are rude to a driver, that one-star rating might follow you for years, affecting your ability to rent a home or find a job. When trust is distributed, it is also fragile. It can be weaponized. And then there is the next frontier, the most massive trust leap of all. It involves a technology that many people find mind-blowing and confusing. It uses complicated concepts with terrible names, like cryptographic algorithms, hash functions, and miners. It was created by a mysterious figure or group of figures whose true identity remains unknown. Oh, this technology, the blockchain, is being called the Great Chain of Being Sure About Things. Imagine a global spreadsheet that no one person owns, but everyone can see. It records every asset transfer, a property title, a stock trade, the rights to a song, and it timestamps it publicly. The implication is staggering. It removes the need for any third-party intermediary. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a bank. You don't even need a government to facilitate the exchange. You still have to trust the idea and the platform, but you don't have to trust the other person at all, because the math does the trusting for you. This is the ultimate evolution of distributed trust, a world where the system itself is the guarantor of truth. We are at the very beginning of this transition. The real disruption happening right now isn't technological. It is the trust shift that technology creates. It is frightening because it forces us to rethink how we build and destroy connections with our customers, our employees, and even our loved ones. But it is also incredibly exciting. It gives us the opportunity to redesign systems that are more transparent, more inclusive, and more accountable. We are moving away from the 20th century model of opaque, linear authority and toward a 21st century fueled by the power of the crowd. So I want to leave you with a challenge. I want you to audit your own brain. The next time you find yourself clicking a button to summon a stranger or entering your personal details into a new platform, stop for a second. Feel that tiny friction, that little spark of hesitation, and recognize it for what it is. That is your Pleistocene brain trying to protect you from a tribe of outsiders. And then, notice the force that overrides it. Notice the data points and the social cues that allow you to take the leap. Ask yourself, who do I really trust? Do I trust the institution with the stone pillars? Or do I trust the collective voice of 500 strangers? The answer to that question is defining the future of our economy, our society, and our species. This is the new era of trust, and we are all climbing the stack together. If you want to keep exploring the hidden engines of the human mind and how they are being rewired by the digital age, stay with us as we continue to peel back the layers of our collective reality. For now, look at the stranger next to you and wonder what it would take for you to trust them with your life. Yee?